Good. Thanks for joining, everyone. Today, I just wanted to go over how to make a population pyramid in Excel. Sometimes a simple table is a perfectly acceptable way to display data. In this case, if you have population data broken down by sex and age group, you can make a visualization that can provide some additional insights into the dynamics of that population. There is a link to a Google Doc in the calendar invite that you can follow along and reference later. That link should stay good, and also has within that a link to a spreadsheet. For the purposes of this recording, decided to go on Humanitarian Data Exchange, data.humdata.org, and search for an additional population data set to play around with. Happened to stumble upon Kazakhstan, so that's what I'll be using for the demo. Downloaded the data and opened it in Excel, and I can see that all the data that I need is there, but it's actually not in the right format. For the graph, is there another way to access the link? I can distribute a PDF after the presentation for people who can't access our Google Drive. And hopefully that'll be okay. So here, the data is in one long row. I need it in columns where the rows are the age groups and the columns are the gender, sex. So I'm going to copy the rows here. And Excel, if you're not familiar, has a neat function called transpose that you can get by right-clicking and going to paste special and selecting transpose from the options there. And this will rotate that. And so now I'm getting closer. I need the females next to the males, not below it. So I'm going to go ahead and select these, cut those, and paste it up here adjacent to the males. And here, in my graph later, I want a nice concise y-axis label. So I don't want number of male or number of repeated going down. So I'm going to real quick just instead of having to manually type out new category labels for all this, I'm going to select those and go to replace, and then I'm going to find number of male from and replace it with nothing. And you can see that got me most of the way there. Now I'm going to go in and clean up that first one that had it written differently, and scroll down and change the last one to 100 plus. Okay. Delete those top ones there. And the number of females rows labels, I'm going to go ahead and select those, delete that, and shift the cells left. So now I have, in a much more convenient format, the column for the males, the females, and the age groups. I like doing it by a percentage of the total population, not the raw counts. So I'm going to calculate that. I need the total, so I can select my male column, or at the bottom here, type in sum, and then select those males, hit enter. Then I can just drag that over to get the sums of the female. And to calculate the percentage, I'll do formulas off to the left here. So equals, and I'll take the first data category here, and I will divide it by the total. And then in my graph, they are, I want the males to be negative, so it shows to the left of 0, and the females to be positive, so it shows to the right So in my formula here, I'm just going to make it negative 100 when I calculate it. And then if you look here, F29 is the reference to the total, and I want that to not change even if I copy and paste the formula to a different cell. So I'm going to add $signs so that that reference does not change, and then hit enter. And then I can just drag this formula down, and you can see that the reference to that first one changes F7, F8, F9 as you go down, so it references each of the new data category cells, but the F29 stays the same. It's always referencing that total number. I'm going to do the same for female. Divide it by the total. Throw in those $signs there, and then multiply it by 100 for a percentage, and this time leaving it positive, and drag that down. Just to make it a little bit easier to read, I'm going to drop down those number of decimal places and copy over my headings. And one thing to note, so looking at my data, one thing I noticed is that all of my categories contain 5 years, page 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, except for this first one, which is everything below the age of 1. And so I need my categories to be equal. So I can either like ignore that or maybe lump it into the bottom category. I would want to ask someone who's better at statistics what the best practice is. I'll probably end up just leaving it out for now. So now that I've got my data formatted, I want to select the columns with the male and female percentage data, and then also hold Control or the Command key on a Mac, and also select my age categories. And if I go up to Insert in here, or wherever you find the options for charts and graphs, I want to insert a 2D clustered bar graph. So we need to do a fair amount of work still. Actually, I forgot, I think I need to add in the header for the page column so that it doesn't show up in my legend. So the first thing I'm going to do is adjust it so that the bars are adjacent to each other, and there's no big gaps between them. So if I select one of the data sets and right-click and format data series, it should open up some options. And the overlap, I want to increase to 100%. You can see now they're directly adjacent to each other. And the gap width, I'm going to drop down to 0. So there's nice large bars and maximizing the use of the space. I think a nice effect is when the fill is kind of nice and light, but then there's a darker border on that. So I'm just going to adjust here the fill on the border and go over to the other side and do the same thing with the color here, adjusting the fill to something light and the border to a darker line there. We don't want our y-axis category labels to be smack dab in the middle of our graph here. So I'm going to select that, go to Format Axis, and under the Labels category here, I can adjust the label position. And instead of next to axis, I'm going to adjust that to low to put it off to the left there. High being if you want it off to the right. I prefer to the left there. Okay. Along the bottom here, you can see that this is not formatted very cleanly. So I'm going to select that, format axis for the x-axis. And the first thing I'm going to do is adjust our min and max. You can see that the data on both sides is below 10, so we have this extra space that's not really being used. So I'm going to adjust the min and the max to 10 so that the use of space is a little bit more efficient. And then looking at my labels, I don't want the negatives, I don't want so many decimal places. So I can go down here under the number options, change decimal places to 0. And then to get rid of the negatives, I'll set the negative numbers to be red. And then here, where the format code has the word red, I can change that to black, hit add, and it'll format accordingly. Looking at the bottom here, I want to move the legend to somewhere where at the top right, so it's a little bit better use of space. I'm going to right click, format legend. Here under legend options position, I'm going to change that to top right. And because there's that nice empty space on the graph itself, I'm going to untick show legend without overlapping so that it's on top. And then I can move that around a little bit. And I don't want that x-axis line coming up through behind the legend there. So I can change the fill to white, and then it won't show behind there. A few last adjustments. I can add in my title. If I look, this is it 2016? So, is that 2016 population pyramid? I can add in under chart design, add chart element. I can add in an axis title. So on the left there, I can add in, for instance, age group. And then for the, sorry, undid what I just did. Axis title, y-axis, age group. Add in the x-axis one. We can do percentage. And there we go. Have a basic population pyramid. And so what this can show us is the speed at which the population is changing, whether it's growing or decreasing. So if it is a very steep population pyramid, sort of like this, or at least from the 25-year onwards, it means it's a rapidly growing population. If it's a little bit more of a square, it's a slowly growing population, and if it's top heavy, that means it's a decreasing population. So somewhere like Japan would actually be almost like an inverse pyramid with the very large elderly population, but not many younger people to replace them. And with the graphics, you can very easily right-click, save as picture. And then drop that into any reports or documents you might want. there's any questions, happy to try and answer those now. You'll need to unmute yourself, or you can type into the chat. Okay. Thanks so much, everyone. I hope to continue to do these and cover additional topics. There's been a request for XLS forms, so creating mobile data collection surveys in Excel. The format that you use the syntax you use to create those for like Open Data Kit and Kogel Toolbox. Also hope to do a session on some of the formulas that you can use using Excel to make your life easier, and things like VLOOKUP. So take care, and I'll send around the PDF.